On a warm evening in the small town of Cedar Springs, Missouri, a shocking discovery changed everything. Behind a dimly lit convenience store, an employee stumbled upon what he initially thought was discarded trash. However, a closer look revealed the lifeless, battered body of an 18-year-old high school senior. Who was she, and how had her seemingly bright future come to such a grisly end? Could the secrets of her life hold the key to unraveling the mystery? The young woman was Hailey Morgan, a senior at Cedar Springs High School and a shining star in the community. Known for her role as the captain of the school's cheerleading team, Hailey was admired for her determination, kindness, and radiant personality. If you're fascinated by unraveling the darkest mysteries and exploring gripping true crime stories, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and become part of our investigative community. Let's dive into the case. Her Instagram feed overflowed with posts showcasing school pride, cheer routines, and snapshots of her favorite cafe visits downtown. Hailey lived with her parents, Meredith and Todd Morgan, in a modest but cozy home. Todd, a respected pastor, and Meredith, an English teacher, were pillars of their tight-knit community. Hailey's older sister, Emma, was studying medicine in Chicago, leaving Hailey as the cherished youngest daughter at home. Despite this outwardly perfect image, darkness ran deep within the Morgan family. Friends hinted at rising tensions, amplified by Hailey's increasing stress in recent months. Unbeknownst to many, she had been entangled in a secret and illicit relationship with her cheerleading coach, Ryan Keller, 31. A charismatic but controlling figure, Ryan had crossed every boundary by initiating the relationship. Hailey had confided in her best friend about her growing fear of him, especially after a recent pregnancy scare. She was determined to end the relationship, but worried about the fallout. On June 6, 2019, mere days after leading her squad in the final pep rally of the school year, Hailey disappeared. Her last moments alive had been filled with mundane activities, running errands and preparing for a weekend road trip with her friends. Hours later, her body was discovered, discarded like trash. The police arrived quickly, and the scene painted a horrifying picture. Her body bore signs of extreme violence, leaving investigators stunned and determined to find her killer. The shock of her murder rippled through Cedar Springs as her identity became public. Social media exploded with grief-stricken posts from friends and classmates, their disbelief palpable in every word. "Fly high, Hailey," read one message, while another asked, "Why would anyone do this to her?" The small community, accustomed to its peaceful routines, now found itself grappling with terror and heartbreak. Detective Mia Rodriguez, a 16-year veteran of the Cedar Springs PD, took charge of the investigation. She arrived at the scene to a chilling sight. Hailey's lifeless body bore signs of a horrific attack. Her injuries were consistent with repeated blunt force trauma, her skull shattered in multiple places. The discovery of tire tracks nearby suggested her body had been transported, and a blood-soaked towel hinted at an attempt to clean up the scene. The autopsy report confirmed the worst. Hailey had been struck at least 5 times with a heavy object, the final blow fracturing her skull fatally. While the medical examiner found no definitive evidence of sexual assault, the lack of clothing at the scene could not be ignored. This clue, paired with the staged nature of the crime scene, pointed to a killer who was both desperate and calculating. Detective Rodriguez and her team combed through Hailey's life for clues. Interviews with friends revealed the tumultuous nature of her relationship with Ryan Keller, her cheerleading coach. Keller, a charming yet controlling figure, had been involved with Hailey in a secret, inappropriate relationship that had grown increasingly strained. The forensic team's recovery of messages from Hailey's phone painted a dark picture. His texts vacillated between pleading for Hailey's affection and issuing veiled threats, particularly after she expressed her intent to end their relationship. Under interrogation, his unease was unmistakable. His account of the evening of June 6th was riddled with inconsistencies, and his alibi crumbled under scrutiny. The doubts were only confirmed by forensic evidence. A search of his vehicle uncovered traces of blood in the trunk, and a receipt for duct tape purchased the morning of the murder suggested premeditation. The case against Keller became damning, but Detective Rodriguez knew they needed more, something irrefutable to ensure justice for Hailey. Keller's role as a coach and his disturbing past became the focal point, but new revelations took the case in unexpected directions. Evidence surfaced that Hailey wasn't the only one hiding secrets. Forensic analysis of her phone led to a shocking discovery. Her mother, Meredith, had exchanged hundreds of messages with someone using the alias Hunter. These messages, spanning several months, revealed an extramarital affair. Once a beacon of moral standing as an English teacher, she had been meeting her secret lover in motels on the outskirts of town. There was an invisible tension within the Morgans, now seemed palpable. Hailey's friends shared stories of her confiding about the growing rift between her parents. She'd tell me how her mom and dad barely spoke, one friend recalled, and how her mom was gone all the time. This strained environment may have left Hailey vulnerable to Keller's manipulation. The police looked again at Keller and examined how his behavior had become more and more strange before her death. Surveillance footage from a diner parking lot showed him pacing outside his car late at night, visibly agitated, on June 5th, the day before Hailey was murdered. Witnesses later came forward claiming they saw him arguing with a young woman matching Hailey's description outside the same diner. It looked heated, one patron reported. She was crying, and he grabbed her arm before she pulled away. The timeline painted a picture of escalating desperation on his part, as Hailey tried to distance herself from him. The DNA on the blood-stained towel that was found next to Hailey's body was matched to Keller by forensic teams. Tire impressions at the scene also corresponded to his vehicle, strengthening the case against him. What really shocked the detectives, though, was finding duct tape in the trunk that had blonde hair stuck to it. Under further interrogation, detectives confronted him with the timeline, physical evidence, and witness reports. His composure unraveled as he began contradicting his earlier statements. "I didn't mean for it to happen," he mumbled at one point before quickly backtracking. The investigation now hovered on the edge of a breakthrough, but lingering questions about Meredith's affair and its potential connection to Hailey's death complicated the case further. Besides Ryan Keller's predatory tendencies and Meredith Morgan's unhinged behavior, a disturbing revelation about Todd Morgan came to light, turning the case in a harrowing new direction. Forensic accountants had been combing through the Morgans' finances, initially to corroborate Meredith's alibi. Instead, they uncovered a series of unexplained transactions linked to the Cedar Springs Outreach Center, where Todd had built a reputation as a compassionate director. The financial trail revealed that Todd had been systematically embezzling funds from the nonprofit organization. This theft was only the beginning. Interviews with former shelter residents unearthed an even more sinister scheme. He was coercing vulnerable individuals into providing their personal information under the guise of administrative paperwork. This information was then sold on the black market to buyers desperate for clean identities. Those who resisted were met with threats or worse. Rumors surfaced that several residents who had refused to comply had mysteriously vanished, their fates unknown. As investigators pushed further, they discovered Todd's connection to an underground drug trade. Shelter residents spoke of Todd pressuring them into purchasing opioids and methamphetamine at inflated prices. One former resident recounted, "He told me if I didn't buy, he'd call the cops and say I was trespassing." Todd's image as a hero who helped the weak was a carefully built facade that hid the fact that he was a monster who feasted on the weak. Meanwhile, Meredith's erratic behavior escalated. Neighbors reported hearing shouting matches from the Morgan household late at night. One such altercation, just a day before Hailey's murder, involved Meredith screaming accusations at Todd. "You're the reason we're all falling apart," she was heard yelling, followed by the sound of shattering glass. The house had become a pressure cooker of secrets and resentments, leaving Hailey caught in the crossfire. A nearby pawn shop had surveillance video of Todd's car going around the Dollar Plus store where Hailey's body was found. A partial fingerprint matching Todd's was also found on the duct tape retrieved from Keller's vehicle, raising questions about whether he had more involvement than previously believed. For Detective Rodriguez, the pieces were leading to a family riddled with betrayal, greed, and violence. The motives driving each suspect remained blurred, leaving the team grappling with the chilling possibility that Hailey's death was the result of not one, but several players in a disturbing game. Police uncovered damning evidence linking Todd to a possible hitman. A burner phone found in his office at Cedar Springs Outreach Center revealed messages with an unknown contact saved under the pseudonym Driver. These exchanges detailed Hailey's routine, her cheerleading practices, her favorite hangout spots, and even what time she usually arrived home. The tone of the texts grew more explicit in the days leading up to Hailey's death, culminating in a chilling message sent the evening before the murder. "It has to be tonight. No loose ends." Financial records exposed his desperation. 2 days before the murder, he withdrew $12,000 in cash from an ATM at a convenience store outside Cedar Springs. Surveillance footage showed him nervously stuffing the money into a duffel bag before speeding away in his car. The timeline matched the appearance of an unidentified man seen loitering near the Dollar Plus store, where Hailey's body was found. Witnesses at the shelter recalled an argument between Todd and a stranger the day before the murder. The man, described as burly and wearing a leather jacket, had been seen pacing outside the office, his voice raised in anger. "You don't want to back out now," the man reportedly said, pointing a finger at Todd, who appeared visibly shaken. Meanwhile, Hailey's friends revealed disturbing new details. One friend shared a text from Hailey sent just days before her death, where she expressed growing fear of her father. "I found something in Dad's office. If anything happens to me, you know who did it," the message read. Investigators believe Hailey had discovered more than just evidence of her father's crimes. She may have uncovered his plans to silence her. Forensic experts analyzing the burner phone unearthed one final piece of the puzzle. GPS coordinates from Todd's car placed him near the Dollar Plus store parking lot, where Hailey's body was dumped. His attempts to mask his involvement were unraveling, but the true extent of his role in the tragedy remained to be fully uncovered. A shocking revelation surfaced that added a new layer of complexity to the tragedy. Detectives uncovered evidence of a secret affair between Meredith and Ryan Keller. What began as a calculated effort by Meredith to manipulate Keller into staying away from Hailey quickly spiraled into a passionate relationship fueled by obsession and jealousy. Text messages retrieved from his phone revealed intimate exchanges, with her referring to Hailey as the obstacle and expressing a growing resentment toward her daughter. In one message, she wrote, "She's trying to ruin everything. I won't let her take what's mine." Investigators theorized that her escalating jealousy over Keller's interactions with Hailey had reached a breaking point, culminating in the violent act that ended her daughter's life. On an evening in Cedar Springs, her carefully constructed world unraveled with devastating brutality. Outside a dimly lit Dollar Plus store, a confrontation between Meredith and her daughter erupted into an altercation that spiraled out of control. As Hailey tried to walk away, Meredith followed, her anger boiling over. Fueled by betrayal and humiliation, Meredith retrieved a crowbar from her car. With unflinching aggression, she charged at her daughter. Hailey managed to scream for help, but it was too late. The first blow struck her shoulder, sending her to the ground. Meredith, blind with rage, continued to swing the crowbar, the metallic clang echoing through the empty lot. Blood spattered across the pavement as she delivered blow after blow, her grip tightening on the weapon. Hailey's attempts to shield herself were futile. By the time Meredith stopped, Hailey's lifeless body was barely recognizable, her blonde hair soaked in crimson streaks. In the aftermath, Meredith moved quickly to conceal her actions. She stripped Hailey of her clothing, leaving the garments in a dumpster behind the store. She wiped the crowbar clean with a towel she had in her trunk and discarded it a mile away, near an abandoned gas station. Then, in a calculated effort to mislead investigators, she carefully positioned the body to appear as though she had been a victim of a robbery gone awry. However, her meticulous staging left behind crucial evidence. Forensic experts found strands of Meredith's hair entangled in Hailey's fingers, likely pulled during her desperate attempt to defend herself. Further analysis uncovered traces of her DNA on Hailey's discarded clothing. Surveillance footage from a nearby pawn shop also captured Meredith's vehicle circling the area before the crime, sealing her fate. When confronted by detectives, she initially feigned ignorance, denying any involvement. But as the mountain of evidence grew insurmountable, she broke down. "She wanted to ruin everything," Meredith sobbed during her confession. "She was taking what was mine." The chilling details of her crime shocked the community to its core. In court, her expression remained blank as prosecutors painted her as a woman consumed by jealousy, willing to destroy her own family to protect her secrets. Meredith Morgan's 20-year sentence for the second-degree murder of her daughter was far from the closure many had hoped for, but it marked the end of one chapter in the investigation. Yet, even as she was led away in handcuffs, unanswered questions lingered in the minds of investigators. While her jealousy and rage had directly ended Hailey's life, Todd's role as the orchestrator of a criminal network painted him as a shadowy figure lurking behind the tragedy. Evidence tying him to the mysterious contact known as Driver was mounting. Witnesses from Cedar Springs Outreach Center added fuel to the fire. One resident, who spoke anonymously, claimed to have overheard Todd arguing with the man believed to be Driver just hours before Hailey was killed. "You're running out of time," the man had reportedly told Todd, his tone menacing. Under growing pressure, he maintained his innocence, denying any connection to the murder. Meanwhile, Meredith's incarceration was far from uneventful. Fellow inmates at the Kentucky Correctional Institute for Women recalled Meredith as volatile, prone to sudden outbursts. One inmate alleged that Meredith had confessed to her in a moment of vulnerability, saying, "I killed her, but I wasn't the only one who wanted her gone." This revelation reignited suspicions about Todd's involvement. While Meredith faced the weight of her actions behind bars, investigators began piecing together the possibility that Hailey's murder was the result of a sinister collaboration between her parents. Detective Mia Rodriguez stood behind the dimly lit parking lot of the Dollar Plus store, where months earlier, Hailey's body had been brutally dumped near a garbage container. New evidence had surfaced, a tattered notebook found inside the trunk of an abandoned car, which was later confirmed to have belonged to Ryan Keller. The notebook's contents added a sinister twist to an already tangled case. The pages were filled with cryptic notes, schedules, and unsettling details about Hailey, her routines, and even personal reflections that oscillated between obsession and regret. One entry read, "She's becoming too much of a problem. I never wanted it to end like this, but she's forcing my hand." The handwriting matched samples taken from Keller during his initial interrogation, reigniting suspicions about his involvement in the murder. The discovery placed him back under the scrutiny of law enforcement. Detectives re-examined the evidence tying him to the crime scene. A forensic sweep of his car, impounded months earlier, revealed traces of duct tape adhesive matching the tape used on Hailey's body. Hair fibers consistent with Hailey's were also discovered in the car's back seat, painting a damning picture. Meanwhile, Todd's criminal network continued to unravel. Investigators uncovered additional bank accounts linked to offshore entities, where he had funneled profits from his identity theft and drug trafficking operations. One account held over $200,000, traced directly to his schemes at Cedar Springs Outreach Center. Residents of the shelter came forward, describing Todd's escalating paranoia in the weeks before Hailey's death. One former resident recalled, "He kept saying someone was going to ruin everything. We thought he was just talking about the cops, but now I wonder if he meant his daughter." As investigators pieced together the timeline, they theorized a possible conspiracy between Todd and Keller. Phone records showed a series of late-night calls between the two men in the days leading up to Hailey's murder. The nature of these conversations remained unknown, but the timing was too coincidental to ignore. Meredith, serving her sentence, was also questioned about the newfound evidence. Her reaction was telling. She refused to cooperate, her usually volatile demeanor replaced with a haunting silence. Fellow inmates later reported that she began to withdraw, often muttering to herself about the secrets buried deeper than the grave. Cedar Springs, once a quiet town, had become a hotbed of scandal and suspicion. As the community watched the case unfold, they couldn't shake the feeling that the full truth behind Hailey's murder had yet to be revealed.